He beat the best in the world, then lost every single match the next season, from world champion to rock bottom. 9 defeats, 0 answers, one man unraveling live on TV. Glen Durrant didn't just fall off, he imploded mentally, emotionally, completely. And what happened behind the scenes? Worse than anyone realized, Glen Durrant wasn't supposed to make it. He wasn't some teenage prodigy groomed for greatness. He wasn't part of a big system, and he didn't have sponsors throwing money at him. He was a housing officer from Middlesbrough. For 30 years, that was his life. Office job by day, darts in the evenings, local tournaments on weekends. He didn't take a real shot at the big time until he was in his 40s. Most athletes are winding down at that age. Glen was just getting started. At first, he stuck close to home. Middlesbrough was his world. Friends, routines, his comfort zone. But one moment changed everything. A friend pulled him aside at a county match and told him the truth. You just don't leave Middlesbrough. He was right. Glen could beat anyone who walked through the door, but he never tested himself outside his bubble. That changed at 41. He started traveling, he started winning, and then he couldn't stop. By 2012, Glen was taking trophies abroad, Northern Ireland, Europe. By 2015, he beat Larry Butler at the World Masters. And by 2017, the impossible had happened. Glen Durrant was a world champion. The BDO World Championship, the biggest prize in the sport outside the PDC, belonged to him. And it wasn't a fluke. He defended it, then did it again. 3 consecutive titles, 2017, 2018, 2019. At Lakeside, Glen wasn't just a player. He was the guy everyone was afraid of. Crowds of 4,000, eyes locked on him, and he loved every second. He walked into tournaments already thinking about who he'd face in the final. That wasn't arrogance, that was focus. That was Glen Durrant at his peak. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't fast. He didn't throw ton 80 after ton 80. But he was surgical. He broke players down one leg at a time, dragging them into deep water and drowning them in his pace. He was a match play killer. Still, people doubted him. The BDO wasn't what it used to be. The prize money was smaller, the talent pool was thinner. So when Glen announced he was switching to the PDC in 2019, the reaction wasn't celebration. It was skepticism. He was already 48. Could he hang with the big names? Michael Van Gerwen, Peter Wright, Gary Anderson. These weren't pod players, they were global stars. The pressure was real, but Glen didn't flinch. Within months of joining the PDC, he made headlines. And then, in 2020, in the behind closed doors event during the pandemic, he did the unthinkable. He won the Premier League, the biggest match play tournament in the sport, a competition reserved for the very best. He beat Nathan Aspinall in the final. He topped the table ahead of Van Gerwen, Price, Wright, everyone. No crowd, no stage lights, no screaming fans, just a man with a dart in his hand and complete control. It was supposed to be his crowning moment, but it was also the start of everything falling apart. That night, Glen Durrant lifted the Premier League trophy. He should have been on top of the world. Instead, he felt uneasy. The throw that had carried him to 3 world titles didn't feel the same. He'd noticed it during the final. His arm was extending too far back. His release point fell off. He couldn't quite explain it, but something was wrong. And he couldn't stop thinking about it. 6 hours after winning the biggest tournament of his life, Glen boarded a flight to Germany for a European tour event. No celebration, no break, no time to reset. That trip ended in disaster. He tested positive for COVID in a German airport. He was hit hard, lost weight, felt weak, couldn't train, couldn't breathe right. He came back to the UK a shell of himself. And from that point on, he never recovered. In the following months, the matches got harder. The wins disappeared. His grip started to change. He stopped trusting his mechanics. The muscle memory that once made darts effortless turned into hesitation. Overthinking crept in. It's something fans don't see. They just watch the scoreline. But Glen was living every second of it. He'd stand at the oche and freeze. His hand wouldn't move. His arm wouldn't respond. He was stuck, like a golfer with the yips, like a pianist who suddenly forgets where middle C is. He called it what it was, panic. The same man who used to stare down a crowd of thousands and ask, "Who am I playing in the final today?" was now afraid to throw a dart. He kept trying, he kept traveling, but he kept losing. One match turned into 10, 10 turned into 20. At the 2021 Premier League, he lost every single game. 0 wins, 9 losses, on live TV. He wasn't just losing, he was being humiliated. And it wasn't just the darts, it was the silence afterward, the walk back to the hotel, alone, in a room, lights off, lying fully clothed in bed asking himself, where has it gone? The decline wasn't physical, it wasn't tactical, it was psychological. That's what made it so devastating. There was no injury to rehab, no coach to fix it, no quick solution. He lost belief. He tried everything, coaching, practice routines, even going back to local leagues, but every match felt worse than the last. He was once the guy nobody wanted to face. Now he was the guy everyone hoped to draw. There's one story Glen tells that sums it all up. He went to the red car races with his daughter. A stranger recognized him and shouted, "Are you still playing snooker?" Glen replied, "No." The man fired back, "Well, you should be. You're shite at darts." People laughed. That hurt more than any loss. At the 2021 World Grand Prix, his average dropped to 58. That's pub standard, not Pro Tour, not even close. It got so bad that during one match, he simply stopped, picked up his darts, shook hands, and walked off. The will was gone, so was the joy. He wasn't practicing anymore. He didn't want to. The thing he once loved had turned into something he feared. And when you fear the thing you love, there's no more fight left. The numbers told one story, lost 27 of his last 28 matches. But what those numbers couldn't show was how each loss chipped away at Glen's sense of identity. He was no longer Duzzer the world champion, he was just Glen. And Glen didn't know who that was anymore. He didn't retire immediately. He lingered, hoped, clung to routines, practiced in silence, watched old footage, looked for answers in slow motion replays of his former self. Sometimes he'd think he found something. An angle, a wrist movement, a follow-through. He'd sprint upstairs to the practice board, try to recreate the magic, but within minutes, it would fade again. The muscle didn't remember. The brain didn't believe. He started coaching, partly to stay involved, partly to distract himself, and for a while, it helped. He got to give others the advice he wished he had taken. He watched rising players throw with ease, confidence, flow. He envied them. One of those players was his nephew, Jamie. Glen talks about Jamie often. He calls him his star student, not just for his potential, but for what Jamie gave back. Confidence, presence, a reminder that the game still had joy to offer. It's sad that Glen had to find that joy secondhand. Meanwhile, fans and pundits flooded him with support, but it didn't feel like support. It felt like pity. He hated that. "I don't want sympathy," he said. "I want people to hate me. I want to get under their skin, because it means I'm winning." But he wasn't. Not anymore. He was watching his career dissolve. One day, he realized something brutal. He had become the guy people wanted to draw in the first round, the player you hoped to face when you needed an easy win. The new Dawson Marshall, the joke of the draw. He remembers someone whispering, "Ooh, I've got Glen first round," and laughing. That joke stuck with him. He used to walk into a venue thinking about the final. Now he walked in hoping not to embarrass himself. He knew it was over, but there was no announcement, no farewell tour, no tears on stage, just a quiet step back. He stopped entering events. He didn't reapply for his tour card. He moved on, but not in the way champions usually do. There was no closure, no clean break, just a slow, painful fade. And maybe that's what makes Glen's story so haunting. He didn't go out in a blaze of glory. He went out slowly, invisibly, while still wanting to be seen. It's easy to remember the trophies, the walk-ons, the roars of the crowd, but Glen Durrant remembers the dark hotel rooms. He remembers finishing a match, shaking hands, walking backstage, and feeling nothing. No adrenaline, no pride, no anger, just a dull, hollow silence. That was the part no one saw. Back in Middlesbrough, he built a small practice room in his new home, lined the walls with memorabilia, trophies, shirts, photos, a reminder of what he had done, but the practice board stayed quiet. He rarely picked up the darts. Glen didn't hide from it. He started talking about anxiety, about overthinking, about the loneliness of losing, especially when you're expected to win. He told people the truth, that he didn't enjoy practicing anymore, that darts, once a source of comfort, had become a source of dread. He admitted the mental strain, the identity crisis, the way success had consumed him, and how quickly failure made him feel invisible. He tried jobs outside darts, even got hired by a local housing company. But he knew that wasn't where his heart was. So he came back to the game in a different way. Not as a player, as a coach, a commentator, a mentor, and for the first time in a long time, he found peace. He started helping others deal with the same demons he once faced. He gave players the advice he never got, showed them how to hold the line when their throw goes, how to stay grounded when the winds dry up, how to find purpose beyond performance. I want to be the best mentor in the world, he said. Not out of ambition, out of redemption. He's not chasing titles anymore, he's chasing clarity. And for a man who once ruled the Oki, that shift away from spotlight towards service is maybe the most honest win of his career. There was no press conference, no final match, no one moment that said, "This is the end." Glen Durrant just stepped away. No farewell tour, no tribute video, no microphone in hand saying goodbye to the fans. Because for Glen, the end didn't come in a single night. It came over time, each missed double, each anxious walk to the Oki, each painful trip home. It was a slow death, not of ability, but of joy. And while Glen's story is marked by quiet tragedy, the next one, it's anything but quiet. Because when it comes to real hatred, few rivalries in darts get as ugly as Michael van Gerwen versus Jelle Clausen. You've seen them glare, you've heard the snipes, but do you really know why MVG can't stand him? Click now to find out what really went down and why that grudge still burns.